On Larry King Now, United Shades of America host W. Kamau Bell.
Seinfeld, I think, said anytime you're frustrated or angry, there's something funny there. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for humor in today's America. When we filmed the pilot for United Shades, it was an episode with the Ku Klux Klan. And at that point, by the time, that was in August of 2014. By the time that aired, people were sort of like, why are you talking about the Klan? And then you fast forward to now, and it's like the Klan is in the daily news.
Klan is in again.
It's in, yeah, the Klan's back, Larry. People say, like, would you like to interview Trump? I don't believe that there's any proof that there's anything to interview there. To have an interview, as you know, you have to have a back and forth conversation. This particular Trump is not somebody.
This Trump.
Yeah, this Trump is not somebody you want to talk to.
Plus,
I feel like if I'm the Democratic Party, remember how the NBA in the 80s just went to Africa and found tall people? Like, I feel like that they need to be scouring America for the next leaders. I don't know that those people currently exist. Every time we talk about is Biden going to run, you know, whenever we talk about the same old people running in 2020, it's like, no, it can't be that.
That's all next on Larry King Now. Welcome to Larry King Now. Our special guest is W. Kamau Bell, acclaimed comedian, host of the Emmy-nominated CNN docuseries, The United Shades of America. Kamau, who serves as ACLU's Ambassador of Racial Justice, also hosts two podcasts called Denzel is the Greatest Actor of All Time, period, and he's going to be in The Iceman Cometh in New York next year. And Politically Reactive. His radio show, Kamau Right Now, airs on KALW, San Francisco's public radio. And that wasn't enough. Kamau's book, The Awkward Thoughts of W. Kamau Bell, hit shelves this past spring. I'm sorry we're out of time. Were you first a comedian?
Yeah, I mean, I still think
did stand-up?
Yeah, did stand-up, did a lot of stand-up in San Francisco. Still am a comedian, still do stand-up. Yeah, so I'm working on my new hour of stand-up right now. So that's at my core, I'm a comedian.
You grew up in Northern California?
No, I grew up in I was born in Palo Alto, but then we moved back east. So most of my life I lived back east and then moved out to the Bay Area about 20 years ago.
Were you a funny kid?
To my mom. I was an only child, so I think I thought I was funny because I used to make my mom laugh.
Did you always get into touchy subjects, political subjects, controversial subjects?
No, when I started, not as a kid, no. When I started doing comedy, I was just trying to be funny in whatever way I could be, but I came from a household where there was always talk of politics and race, and so I think I naturally gravitated to that as I kept doing comedy.
You find things funny in today's America?
I think Seinfeld, I think, said anytime you're frustrated or angry, there's something funny there. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for humor in today's America.
In Trump's America, especially?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, you know, he gives us, the tweets are manna from heaven.
All right, give me the genesis of United Shades.
I had a show previously called Totally Biased that was executive produced by Chris Rock. And it was sort of like a standard late night talk show where I did monologue and guests. That was on FX, and then FXX, and then Nowhere. And so on that show, people said the best thing that I did was the Man on the Street segments, which Chris Rock had encouraged me to do. I'd never done that before. And so when that show got canceled, I had a meeting with CNN, and they had just done Bourdain's. They just launched Bourdain's show, and Morgan Spurlock, and Lisa Ling, and they wanted to launch an original show, because all those shows had sort of existed elsewhere. And they thought I could host a show. They had a pitch for a show where a black guy goes places where he shouldn't go. And so I was the black guy, since Don Lemon wouldn't do it, I guess.
Has that show, it's been 2 years now, right?
Yes, yeah.
Has it changed under Trump than under Obama?
I mean, I do feel lucky that we had a year before this happened to sort of like get everything under our feet. I think that, so that by the time the second season came, because when we filmed the pilot for United Shades, it was an episode with the Ku Klux Klan. And at that point, by the time, that was in August of 2014. By the time that aired, people were sort of like, why are you talking about the Klan? And then you fast forward to now, and it's like the Klan is in the daily news.
Klan is in again.
It's in, yeah, the Klan's back, Larry. Everything comes back eventually. Bell bottoms, the Klan.
How do you select a story?
It's got to be something that I really feel like either I don't know enough about, or I feel like people as a whole don't know enough about. So for me, it's got to be areas where it's like, and also I do want some sense of either emotional or physical jeopardy. Something where it's like there's stakes.
Do the producers book the guests and everything? And
Yeah, I mean,
they're pretty busy. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, they do. I have a great staff. They're right here in LA. But also, I suggest a lot of people. A lot of times, like we did an episode about East LA, Boyle Heights in East LA. And I basically booked a lot of that show from friends of mine who I knew who worked in immigrants' rights movements and who were Mexican Americans and activists. And so I went to them and said, we need people for this show because they can't find anybody. And so a lot of times it's my contacts will get us guests.
CNN is happy with it, and that's good.
It was season 3. We're about to start filming season 3 in about 2 weeks. So
I did 26 years there. Maybe you'll...
I know, exactly.
Okay. One of the most memorable moments for this year, you talked to alt-right leader, white supremacist Richard Spencer. First, why'd you pick him?
First of all, thank you for calling him a white supremacist. Not everybody will do that. At the time we picked him, it was because he was not as famous as he is now. We were trying to find we were filming in the D.C. area, and the episode is all about immigration and refugees. And the producer was like, well, should we find somebody who has a different viewpoint? And it just so happened that Richard Spencer was going to be there doing one of his white supremacist conferences. And so we just picked him like, oh, he's there in the area. And then by the time we got closer, he started to become more known. And so would we have picked him knowing what we know now? I don't know. But certainly he was not the guy he is now.
Were you surprised he agreed to speak to you?
I was, until I got there and realized that, he's a guy who craves the spotlight. He craves the attention. The weird thing about Richard Spencer is he actually wants to be liked. And if you watch the interview with me, it seems like he's a guy who wants me to like him. He just won't let me go to his party afterwards.
Did you have tough time preparing for that?
I mean, you can read all the things, you can get all the research. I have the staff gives all the research, but then when you sit down, and you've done these things, where you sit down with somebody who
100 years.
Yeah, yeah.
What surprised you the most about him?
That he was so cavalier with his hatred. That he seemed to. A lot of times you see these people on TV and they're screaming and yelling, but he was hateful with a smile.
Why does he think, because of pigment color, that he's better than you?
Well, if we could answer that question, Larry, we would both win the Nobel Peace Prize.
Why do you think he thinks that? It's only pigment color, so...
Yeah, I think that, unfortunately, a lot of this country's history was written by people who weren't really telling the whole story. So there's generations of people who've grown up reading the history books where the Pilgrims are always the heroes, and the Indians were the savage tribes who needed to be domesticated. And slavery was a sort of this bad thing that happened, but once we got through it, everything was fine. And so the history books for a lot of people were written that way, and they believed them. And so then they think, and in those history books, the through line, it's either said or not said, is that America's a white country. America was dominated by Europeans and the British, and it's here for us. And even though when the Irish showed up, they weren't considered white, and the Italians showed up, they weren't considered white, they eventually all graduated to whiteness. So there's many people, and as we see, some of them have been in the White House, who believe that this country is set up for white people.
Home of the free, land of the brave was a false.
Yes, yeah. Give us your tired.
You were at the No Hate in the Bay rally in Berkeley. How did that go?
The Nazis left, so I think it went pretty well. It went like it usually goes. You got to chase the Nazis out of town.
Do you think there's an alt-left movement?
Nobody on the left has created that title. The president created that title. I know people in the Bay Area who are sort of accepting that title because this black woman I know named Nancy Armstrong Temple says, hey, black people are good at taking things you think are insults and turning them into pluses. So
there might have been an alt-left, pockets of alt-left in the past. I don't see any major.
No, there's nobody. That's not a real thing. And Trump, as he often does, just starts talking, and he thinks if it comes out of his mouth, then it must be true.
Next, we'll dive deeper into America's current political climate and talk about what's next for our guest, W. Kamau Bell. Stay with us on Larry King Now. We're back with W. Kamau Bell. We're heading into season 3 of United Shades. Have you started working on it?
Yeah, we are in pre-production right now. I was just on the phone call with one of the producers.
Where's the first thing you're going?
We like to keep it a little bit. I'll tell you off camera since you're CNN alumni, but
when does it start?
We won't start until next April, so we're still putting it together.
Is there anyone you're dying to cover?
I mean, I would.
How about Trump?
Well, people say, like, would you like to interview Trump? I don't believe that there's any proof that there's anything to interview there. To have an interview, as you know, you have to have a back and forth conversation. I know you've interviewed Trump before, but this particular Trump is not somebody.
This Trump.
Trump is not somebody you want to talk to.
You work at CNN, my old home.
Yep.
The home of fake news.
Fake news.
What do you make of that?
It's a way to try to. I mean, it's a very effective way to create the myth that facts aren't real. And so now, by calling the CNN fake news and other mainstream media outlets fake news, it just gives his base license to say that anything that comes out of those places is not to be believed. And
but he used to go on CNN all the time. He watched CNN all the time.
I mean, CNN did a good job for him during the election. They probably deserved a cabinet position.
They covered him too much.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Some people, they covered every speech he made.
Yeah, yeah.
Why did he win?
Why did he win? The Electoral College. I think that's exactly why he won. I think that when we talk about why Trump won, we don't focus enough on the fact that we're the only major nation that does our leaders' election that way, that we don't just count the votes. So for me, it's like, yes, there's a lot of mistakes. You could point a lot of mistakes Hillary made, but at the end of the day, she won the popular vote, and that should be how you pick a world leader.
Do you know why we have an Electoral College? Because Jefferson and those guys, they thought, what if we elect a moron? That's the truth.
Yeah.
That was said at the time.
Yeah.
That shouldn't we have a group of people, electors, who can throw that out and vote for someone else?
And yet I did that thing a lot of people did. I wrote all the electors and said, hey, can you throw this guy out? And many of them wrote back, and they don't see it that way. They see it as they're doing the duty of the people, which is
us, nothing.
Yeah, which the popular vote is actually doing the duty.
How do you make sense of the current division in the country?
I don't see it as current. I see it as continual. This is, I think Trump one day tweeted out, we've been divided for decades. And my response was, yeah, all the decades, ever since this country was founded, we've been founded on a division from Columbus didn't land and say, may I come here? The British don't show up and say, hey, can we work with you? So for me, it's like, this is a continual division that sometimes looks like it's healing and then sometimes looks like it's getting worse.
You're married to a white woman.
I am.
How do you explain all of this to your kids? How old are your kids?
My kids are 6 and 3. So,
well, does the 6 understand?
The 6 understands a little bit. Just last night, me and my wife both went to the No Hate in the Bay rally, and then I was watching. Me and my wife showed her pictures of the No Hate in the Bay rally and said, "This is where we were today. This is why we did this." We talked about white. We took our kids to a meeting the day before, a very Berkeley meeting about white supremacy with kids for kids. So, I can hear them laughing. It's scary to her, but it feels like irresponsible parenting if you don't do it.
I'm older than you.
By a little bit.
I remember the days in the U.S. Senate where conservatives and liberals went to dinner together, sponsored bills together when they thought it would help the country.
Yeah.
Lyndon Johnson got Everett Dirksen to support the Civil Rights Bill. Compromise was the law of the land. Mm-hmm. What changed?
The minute you start to put more money into people's positions and more power, I don't know that politics should be a job that makes you a lot of money. I think that the problem is that then it becomes about how do I keep my job instead of how do I work best for the American people. I mean, I don't think it should pay you a living wage, but I think the problem is that you can clearly see these people have more invested in keeping their jobs than they do in actually helping people.
Orrin Hatch was the principal speaker at Ted Kennedy's funeral.
Mm-hmm.
That don't happen now.
It doesn't happen anymore.
Can it ever go back together? Can it work again? Does it need a leadership?
It needs better leadership, but I also think it needs, I guess I'm a Democrat technically, but I think the Democratic Party really has to take a real hard look at itself and there has to be new ideas and new leadership. You can't just sort of go down the same road you went down before.
After the break, biggest risk, best advice, dream guests, and more in a round of If You Only Knew with our special guest, W. Kamau Bell. Don't click away. He's the host of the United Shades of America on CNN. He's W. Kamau Bell. What do you think President Obama's thinking now? We haven't heard from him. He made a couple of some references.
He sent out a tweet yesterday to support the hurricane victims, which I thought was very interesting considering the way you look at Trump's tweets. Obama sent out a tweet that said, here, donate to the Red Cross. And Trump's tweets were just how we're doing awesome and good and fabulous and not sad, So for me, what is he thinking? I don't know what he's thinking. I read somewhere that he said that he's going to come back in the fall to help rebuild the Democratic Party. And I'm like, hey, we don't know if we're going to be here in the fall. You know,
you think he'll support congressional races?
I don't know. I think
he's still very popular.
He's still very popular, but I think he may be more popular as an independent force in some sense. I don't know that I necessarily want him to get involved in the day-to-day runnings of the Democratic Party.
Would you ask him if he spoke to you? Would you say speak out more?
Yeah, I mean, I think that. Or I would ask him why he doesn't. That's what I would like to ask him. I wish he would speak up more, but I would ask him because he clearly is very calculated about how he's been calculated his whole career. And part of that calculation is why he got to be America's first black president, because he was thinking in ways and really thinking ahead in ways that people didn't think people weren't anticipating. But I would want to ask him why he doesn't speak out more forcefully. That would be my question.
What we need, obviously, in times of stress, are leadership. Mm-hmm. Trump hasn't provided that. Obama was a leader. Mm-hmm. Reagan was a leader. Is there anyone you'd say, boy, that's my person?
Yes, but they're all activists who have no shot of entering electoral politics. There's many people that I consult and who I follow. Alicia Garza is one of the founders of Black Lives Matter. Just me saying that is making people whose watches go, ah! You know, so for me, it's like there's many qualified leaders who I follow who would have no shot because of how the system's set up. And would have no interest in running for president.
Nobody in the Senate?
You know, I feel like if I'm the Democratic Party, remember how the NBA in the 80s just went to Africa and found tall people? Like, I feel like that they need to be scouring America for the next leaders. I don't know that those people that currently exist in the halls.
Except there are no back rooms anymore. You got to run in primaries, and you got to win in primaries.
But I feel like there's probably a city comptroller somewhere who has the natural talent, but we're not looking in those places. We're sort of still talking about, like, every time we talk about is Biden going to run, you know, whenever we talk about the same old people running in 2020, it's like, no, it can't be that. Is Bernie going to run again? It can't be that. We have to be looking.
You think Trump will finish the term?
I think we have to I think we can't get comfortable with the idea that he's never going to finish. I think some people on the left are like, well, he's never going to make it through. And I think we have to let go of that idea because we're already in a place we weren't expecting.
We play a little game of If You Only Knew. This is prepared by our producers. Just questions. Who is your childhood celebrity crush?
Crush? Crush. That's Joe from Facts of Life.
Biggest risk you ever took?
I guess meeting the KKK for United Shades of America. That's the most public one. Then getting married is right under that.
That had to be a lot of laugh the KKK had.
Oh, yeah, it was a lot. It was a good time.
Best piece of advice you ever got?
Best piece of advice I ever got, personally, a comedian named Kevin Kataoka, who told me early on in my stand-up days, don't think you can just be a stand-up comedian. You have to think of other things you can do. And so my career right now is proof that I took that advice.
What's the worst piece of advice you ever got?
Quit doing stand-up comedy from my dad.
Place he told you to quit?
Oh, yeah.
What did your dad do?
He has been in insurance for probably 30 years or something.
Place we'd find you on a day off?
In my house in front of my television.
Person you'd switch places with for a day?
Oh, person I'd switch places with for a day. Who would I switch places with for a day? Kevin Hart? Oh, no, I don't want to do that many sit-ups. No, thank you. But somebody, Seinfeld seems to have a pretty good life.
Hey,
yeah,
pretty good.
There we go. Let's go with Seinfeld.
One thing people get wrong about you?
That I hate white people. I have one in my house, and that I married. Well, and I got 2 half ones that I'm raising.
Longest period of time you've been awake?
I'm going to say I've never done a full 24 hours. I've definitely done some 20-hour days, yeah.
Biggest regret?
Biggest regret, not taking my career, not trusting my instincts in my career sooner.
Person you'd least like to be stranded on a desert island with?
That's Trump. I think that would be not good. I would not want to.
He's everywhere, isn't he?
Yeah. That would
dream guest.
I'd rather Steve Bannon. Maybe.
Dream guest on any one of your shows.
Dream guest, Denzel Washington on my Denzel Washington
Great guy.
podcast. Oh, yeah.
He would do it. He would do it.
I've heard that. I don't know. Well, maybe you can talk to him.
Coming to Broadway in Iceman Cometh, which is a 4.5-hour play.
I hope to be there. Yes.
He's playing Hickey.
Yeah.
Something that people aren't paying enough attention to.
Something people are not paying enough attention to. How the public school system is letting our kids down.
Why?
If you don't invest money in the public school system, it's a very clear thing that if the schools don't have enough money to invest in the system, then the kids' education gets worse. And so when we say why aren't Americans smarter? Why aren't we inventing new things? It's all about the public school system.
We might have a Secretary of Education who doesn't believe in it.
Yeah.
Person from history you'd like to take to lunch?
Malcolm X.
I knew him well.
Oh, come on, Larry.
Yeah, I hate to break it to you. I interviewed him twice.
Oh, come on.
Kamau in 10 years.
Kamau in 10 years. Let's see. Hopefully working still in the show business, but working much less on camera and working behind the camera to give other people
you want to produce things?
Absolutely, yeah.
What kind of legs United Shades has? How long do you think it'll go?
You know, I think that we'll see if Trump goes 2 terms, and we got at least 8 years. And then depends what happens after that. Yeah.
Do you want to do more films and documentaries?
I want to do. I really enjoy doing documentaries. I really enjoy, and not just stuff I'm on camera with. I really enjoy That's my favorite. A friend of mine said to me the other day, "You don't like watching fiction." I was like, "Yeah, I guess I don't."
When we return to Larry King now, Kamau will be taking your questions from social media. Stay with us. United Shades of America will go into its 3rd season next year. Our guest is W. Kamau Bell, its host, and we go into now a thing of social media. Right. Deborah Jean 100 on Twitter. What do you think the best thing the United States has going for itself right now?
The best thing the United States has going for itself right now, freedom of speech and freedom of the press. You know, as long as we can keep that going, I think we have a chance to be okay.
At the Rube 33 on Twitter, do you find that Democrats are becoming more open to listening to the right now that Trump is in office, or is there greater resistance?
Well, first of all, I don't think Trump is really the right. I think if this is an opportunity that I think that Republicans and Democrats have to real Republicans and real Democrats have to come together. I don't know if they'll take it though.
What is he? If he's not the right,
he's like that. If the villain Bane from the Batman movies was a president, he's like just a disturber, just a chaotic force. At
KJM 1016 on Twitter, what do you make of the Colin Kaepernick situation? Can you believe he's essentially being blacklisted?
I think it's really interesting that a lot of people have talked about this. The NFL lets players get away with a lot of things. Whereas it's breaking laws and domestic violence, a lot of things that they sort of still allow the players to come back in the league. So it's pretty interesting that a guy who just says I'm going to kneel during the anthem, who doesn't disrupt the anthem, doesn't stop other people from wanting to stand for the anthem, but that they think he's too volatile for the league, even though at this point it's clear worse quarterbacks are being signed every day.
Buffy V on the Larry King Now blog. What's the worst thing ever had said to you on Twitter?
Oh my God!
Do you get a lot of hate?
I do get a lot of hate, but I'm really good at letting it roll off my back now. I mean, some of it is like some guy this morning said. I mean, it's not bad, but I thought it was funny. He's like, "You are objectively not funny," and I said, "Well, humor is subjective, not objective." So I felt like I was like, I usually, if I can go back and be funny, I'll do that. But I'm not scrolling through Twitter to find the worst things. But I've seen, whenever things get I don't even want to say the things I don't like because then it's going to encourage people to send them my way.
Lorraine D. on the Larry King Now blog. Is there a nation abroad the United States would do better mimicking politically and socially?
I don't know. I feel like you could really go through a whole buffet platter of the rest of the world because we have the resources to make it happen. I think that certainly we could have nationalized medicine like the UK and Canada does. Certainly we could adapt Norway's version of how they incarcerate people, where people live in 1-bedroom apartments and the longest sentence is 20 years. Certainly if we have the money and we have the resources and the money to make that happen. We could go through the world and pick the best stuff.
I just left Norway. It's an amazing place. Yeah. Grant Sloss, could we ever see you host a talk show on CNN or another network? Is that something you'd like to do?
No, I had a little experience with that. It's not my thing. I think some people, I really like being out in the world. So yeah, I mean, I don't think that would happen. No.
Corey Anderson on Facebook. Of all the voices and commentators on the right, which one is the most difficult for you to listen to? And who would you like to go toe-to-toe with?
Who would I like to go toe-to-toe with? The most difficult one for me to listen to, I don't have to listen to anymore because CNN let him go. That was Jeffrey Lord. Because that was the one, because I just feel like he's not playing fair at all. He's not using facts. He's just, again, he's sort of Trump Jr. Who would I like to go toe-to-toe with? There's no way. I mean, I feel like the people who frustrate me the most are people I would not want to have conversations with because I don't think they're really being genuine.
They're on Fox News.
Yeah, you know, there's no way those people I want to talk to. I'd rather talk to Ana Navarro, who's a Republican who cares, versus some of these other people.
T.J. Seifert on Facebook. What role do you think social media has played in America's current political climate?
I mean, overall, I think it's probably it's not a net plus. It's probably somewhere in the middle because I think it has certainly made things worse. I think the anonymity of social media has made things worse empirically, and I think that the way in which people use social media to attack people, a lot of this comes from like the alt-right sources to sort of really whether they find out where your home address is and try to threaten you. A lot of that stuff makes things way worse. I think most of social media is doing a really bad job of protecting people.
You can spread any lie.
You can spread any lie, and you can also, you can use it as a way to flood people with attacks, the way that Milo did has done with many people.
And finally, at Ben Lacey on Twitter, when can Larry be on Kamau's podcast, Politically Reactive?
He can be on it anytime he wants to.
Okay, we will book it.
Well, let's book it. Let's just book.
Come on.
Oh, we're happy to have you. I would have not thought to ask you. I think that was my pseudonym. I sent that in.
Kamau, great pleasure.
Nice to meet you.
Big thanks to my guest, W. Kamau Bell. Be sure to look out for Season 3 of his show, United Shades of America. Spend some time with him on his podcast. Denzel's the greatest actor of all time, period, and I don't know him. And Politically Reactive, where I'll be on.
Yes.
And pick up a copy of his book, The Awkward Thoughts of W. Kamau Bell. As always, you can find me on Twitter at King's Things. I'll see you next time.